Hello there and welcome to my boat shed. My name is Panu and I am building this 15 meter or 50 foot liveaboard cruising sailboat from scratch here in Finland. This boat is mostly by my own design and I have been building these now for 3 years or so. Before we start, remember of course to subscribe, give me a like and put a comment down below. This video is actually gonna be 2 videos in a row because there is quite a lot of material in the hard drives right now. So let's jump back in time a few weeks back when we finished these sections here and see what I had in mind back then. Alright, now I have finished and cleaned up all these edges in here and I did a rounding in here with the router, so that is now nice and smooth all the way. And next I need to start putting the fiberglass in there, but as I have mentioned, I really don't have that much experience of fiberglass work and I want to test it first. So that's why I made this small test piece here. So here we have some plywood and this kind of represents of the shape we have to do. So there's an inside corner there, there's an outside radius here, and this is kind of the edge of the frame. And I want to try to kind of fiberglass this and how it turns out and use the fillet in these corners and stuff like that. So that is what I'm gonna do next. And for this purpose I purchased actually many years ago already a bunch of fiberglass. So this roll is full of fiberglass. There is perhaps all the different fiberglass kind of thicknesses and weaves that I found from one online shop. And this particular fabric is the thickness I'm gonna use. It has 160 grams and it is twill weave, so it kind of flexes in both directions like that. This is not that structural, this is just basically to cover everything, to make kind of smooth and strong surface against any bumps or hits or things like that. And this material I have actually full roll over there already. That should be enough to cover everything I need to cover in here for foreseeing future. But this I'm gonna use now to apply into that test piece and we'll see how that goes, and I hopefully learn how to handle this. I actually bought new scissors just for this job, and so let's now get a piece of this and start making that test piece. Good evening, a little bit of a detour. So as my previous sailing trip went a little bit, unfortunately, down to the toilet, this time I think this is gonna work out because we are already sailing, as you can see. And we just left Helsinki. Helsinki is maybe visible behind there. We're heading to Baltic Sea, to Hanko, which is another small city down the coast of Finland, and yeah, we're gonna do overnight sail from Helsinki to there. It should take a little less than 24 hours, depending on the wind, of course. Yeah, these conditions are just absolutely fantastic right now. There's a light breeze, we have a reacher sail here and mainsail up, and side wind, and this should continue through the night like this. We're gonna enjoy the night. Sun just set back there, and yeah, the night is gonna be dark because there's no moon. It should be clear sky mostly, and hopefully we can see a lot of stars. But one thing, sailing here in the Baltic Sea, there's a lot of traffic all the time, so we're going out there to the open, not ocean, but open sea, but there's still quite a lot of traffic, so there's really important to have a good watch all the time for all the vessels that are going around there. So this is just something I really need right now. This looks just freaking amazing. Just look at that sunset over there. It's 2 in the morning, and it's my turn to get some rest. So far so good. Only one thing broke. Now a few hours of rest for me. Alright, it's the next morning. We have been sailing through the night with very good speed actually. Way over 5 knots, almost over 6 knots all the time, and it was good breeze, and yeah, I felt a little bit kind of, I wouldn't say seasick, but a little bit annoying feeling was there at the end of the night. It's a little bit of a choppy seas, and yeah, I haven't just used to being on the boat for this summer that much. But yeah, what I wanted to show you is that we have been steering with the wind vane all the time, and it's working just amazingly. And you know, I've been thinking about having a wind vane on the boat. There's a placement for that, and this kind of made me decide that there's definitely going to be wind vane in the boat. No electricity went in the steering the boat, and kept course very well, much better than I ever could. So yeah, that's great. And here is Kimmo. You may recognize him. He's been helping with the boat many times, and it's his boat. Yeah, weather is quite nice actually. getting a little warmer. It has been quite cold through the night, but now it's very nice in here. And then we are approaching, I don't know if it's city or town of Hanko. It's the southernmost point of Finland, excluding the islands. Getting there soon. We may need to do a couple of tacks here, because this is a sailboat, no engine just yet. All right, back in the workshop again after the trip. That was really nice. And this test piece that I did last week is now fully cured, of course. I'm not completely satisfied how it went, because there is some air pockets underneath the fiberglass in here. And also I'm not completely sure if this fillet is good enough for me. And I think there is a couple of reasons why it went how it went. There's a little bit of a close-up. And the obvious thing is the temperature. It's now quite cold in here. Last week it was below 10 degrees, now it's around 10 degrees. And the epoxy is pretty thick and sticky when it's cold like that. I think that's the first reason that I didn't get all the air bubbles out, because of the cold. It was just too thick. So that's why I now lifted the epoxy into that warm office there, and it's now nice and toasty in there. And second thing about the temperature is, of course, that when I mix it with my mixer with the drill, it kind of creates a lot of air bubbles in the epoxy itself. So there's a lot of air in the epoxy when I'm rolling it out, and I think especially here in the fillet there's air bubbles trapped inside the fillet. So I probably need to mix these fillet materials without the drill. Then the next thing that I think is affecting a little bit this is the roller that I used. I have been using these kind of hairy rollers. It's not very thick, but it's kind of well, fluffy, and it's great for putting the epoxy on glue-up joints. It kind of breaks all the air bubbles and spreads it evenly. But when doing this with the fiberglass, I think this doesn't really work that well, kind of pushing the air out of the fiberglass. So that's why I bought a couple of options here in the local hardware store. This is a little bit fluffy as well, but it's a little bit shorter and tighter grain, so to speak. And then there's this foam roller. I'm not sure if this stands the epoxy, if it's gonna melt, but we'll test this. So yeah, for that I made a second test piece. So I'm gonna try to make another one and kind of test a little bit different method, having warm epoxy, mixing it differently, and of course making right amount, because last time there was a lot of extra. I did way too much of the stuff, so yeah. And also I think I'm gonna lay the epoxy on the table to the fiberglass before putting it in here. I think I'm now gonna mix the next batch of epoxy and make this with a slightly different method and see how it turns out. I'm not really happy of this result if my boat had this kind of result, so maybe it's better a little bit safe than sorry, and try make this as well as I possibly can. One small detail is this edge right here. I'm not sure if you can see it on camera, but there's just tiny lip in here, and this hard edge is really difficult to fill, so the fiberglass really doesn't want to form into that, so there's an air pocket easily forming in this kind of situation, so I need to avoid things like that. Maybe I should spread some thickened epoxy in places like that. And one thing about the thickened epoxy, I used pine dust for thickening the epoxy. It makes the epoxy really structural thing, so it is very hard and hard to kind of break. Much stronger than just with the silica, I think, because there's fibers, of course, but it also is very kind of uneven and kind of sharp. There is this fiber fiber pieces that kind of try to stick out from there, so it makes it a little bit maybe hard to spread evenly because it's a little bit kind of sharp, so to speak. I'm gonna do a second batch and then we'll see how this turns out, and then we can start putting fiberglass onto the boat, which is really exciting. Just like that, they are both now cured, and now we have them side by side here. And this one here is the first one. You can immediately see that it's a little bit bumpy. There is way too much epoxy there, I think. It's a little bit of waviness and things like that. So yeah, this was the first one definitely. And the second one, it's much better. So I wetted out the fiberglass first and then wetted out the surface here and then just laid over that. And I think that especially the fillet here came up really good. I think there's a little bit of air bubbles there. I don't think I can totally get rid of those with this method, but yeah, there's less epoxy, there's texture from the fiberglass. Not sure if it comes out in the camera, maybe a little bit. I think this looks very good. Little bit of air bubbles here and there, but not very much. I think this is quite good. It was pretty easy kind of roll up the wetted fiberglass over on top of this. Although it was a little bit difficult maybe to handle this wet fiberglass cloth. It's pretty sticky and this shape here is quite complicated. Well, actually, if we go take a look at the actual spot. So this place here is pretty complicated to form the fiberglass over this whole thing. So I'm kind of leaning towards to get it in here when it's dry still, but make it a little bit kind of more carefully, kind of roll it up there to avoid most of the air bubbles. So I think we're gonna start with this to kind of cut the fiberglass here and check out how that conforms there, and then we can start laminating some fiberglass into the boat. And meanwhile, while that was curing, it's now actually 2 days later because it has been quite cold nights. It's around a little bit over zero at night time, a little bit less than 10 degrees and at the daytime. It's now 2nd of October, so yeah, the fall is definitely coming and winter is knocking on the door. But meanwhile, I started to make some deck beams. So here we have the front locker, the bow locker, and now I have made 2 deck beams. Not sure if the light is pretty hard here, but there is now a deck beam there against that bulkhead, and now there is a deck beam in this direction as well. And that thing will be the hatch for this locker. So it's around 600 millimeters in this direction and a little bit more in this direction. Of course, its shape is kind of, I don't know the word in English of this kind of shape, but the hatch will be something like that eventually. So those beams will kind of form the edges of the hatch, and I want to make it as large as possible. There's one detail here, I'm not sure if you can see, there's a bread line there, and that is approximate location of the anchor chain coming here from the front and going over this thing and there. I think there is gonna be some kind of not pipe yet here, but some kind of groove where that anchor chain will go on top of the deck. I just wanted to mark it there so that I can get the hatch as large as possible but not interfere with the anchor chain. So yeah, that is that. I'm gonna next glue these in. There's a scarf joints in these pieces, so I need to glue them in one go, and there's a little bit of pockets there to kind of hold the weight if necessary. So those will go over there, and I already did rounding on top of these, so the fiberglass will eventually be nicely conformed around these. So I need to glue these in, and after I have glued these, I of course need to clean them up as I have done with all of this, and then we can fiberglass this whole thing. That's going to be exciting because the fiberglass will kind of form on all of these surfaces and this bulkhead as well, as mentioned. So next up is some gluing and fiberglassing, and we're gonna start with that as well. So a lot of things happening now in here. And one thing that was kind of delaying this whole thing a little bit was those cleat mount things. But now I have finally ordered them in their final form. So it turned out that the cleat I got from Vitus, as an example, they're not supplying those cleats anymore in the future, so they don't have any of those anymore. So I kind of came into conclusion that I'm gonna build my own cleats, or not me, that metal fabricator guy is gonna build cleats for me. And they're pretty simple, but I'm gonna make them pretty much the same as the example one, but a little bit bigger. So the important thing is that the mounting method is the same that the plan was made for those things. So 3 bolts, and now we're going with the bigger bolts. So I think those are gonna be just great, and I'm gonna do some planning for them and get them fabricated. But obviously we don't have any kind of hurry with those, so I can do that sometime next year. But the important part is those cleat mounts. We're gonna install them soon as well. I hope I can get them made next week. We'll see. I don't know the schedule of the metal guy, but hopefully they will come soon. And also meanwhile I did these. These are just pieces of wood that I'm gonna glue into those stanchion post placements. And yeah, it consists of 4 layers like that, and we're gonna glue these as a pack in where the stanchion post will be placed in there. So they are all done here, and just need to grab some epoxy. Yeah, it's getting a little late for today already, but I think I'm gonna hang out here for just a few more minutes to do some prep work with this thing. Maybe I'll try to glue those in tomorrow so that we can get into fiberglassing later this week. It's now Thursday, so maybe on the weekend we can start making the fiberglass stuff. Also gluing in these, of course. So a lot of glue up is gonna happen in coming days. All right, now there is one more thing done. As you saw, I put in these reinforcements for the stanchion post bases. So there's a little bit of a block of wood on every position where it should be a stanchion eventually. And here in the front, they are a little bit special. So let's turn the camera around. First of all, you can see there's a button here. I tried to kind of get a feel of the shape of the planking, and I noticed something here. So first of all, this is the block there, which acts both as a base for the stanchion post, but also a base for the planking in this area. So the planking, of course, comes from here, and it stops in there, and the higher planks will extend to the stem. But I noticed something here a little bit, well, I wouldn't consider it as a mistake, but a little bit of unplanned, a little bit of maybe inconsistency, maybe. So if you take a look at this edge right here, where the planking should go, and this edge right here where the planking should end, they are a little bit different. So I actually noticed this first, and then I checked out the 3D model, and it is there as well. So when I draw this edge, I should have checked a little bit further forward where the edge of the stem will be. So this edge should be a little bit in tighter corner. That means that I need to trim this a little bit here and trim this a little bit here as well, or something like that eventually. But I think it works now. It's close enough in here, and I shape the stem a little bit here in the bottom so I can get the batten in approximately right position, and yeah, I think it works now. And this can act as an end for the planking. Of course, when we start to figure out the planking, we need to probably sand or trim these a little bit more, but that's all right. But yeah, I think they are now fine and they work fine. And also, as you saw, I did and glued in these deck beams here in the front locker. I initially thought that I would make a deck beam here and another deck beam here, but then I figured that I want to have the hatch as big as possible in that edge, so it will extend right on this frame. And this side, it's just so narrow that I don't think that needs any deck beams really. So those are now done, and there is that red dot over there is a mark that there is a snapped screw inside. So yeah, I made a pre-drilled hole for that, but I think the epoxy just attached to the screw so hard that the screw just snapped. That's unfortunate. Now there's some iron in the structure. Not sure if I'm gonna get it off. Maybe if it's visible from the other side eventually, I may take it off, but it's gonna stay there. But the next thing for here is to, of course, clean up this mess of this glue up, and then we can start lay up the fiberglass in this area. And also, now that these are now glued in, I'm gonna clean up these as well. I need to do a rounding on that corner to accept the fiberglass. This edge will be trimmed off when we do the first layers of the planking, but these edges need to be covered in fiberglass. So yeah, that still needs to be done. A little bit more cleanup, unfortunately, but yeah, that's just the way it goes in this kind of project, I think. But now when these are in, there is one more thing we can do. Alright, I think that's enough for this video right now. We'll continue right where we left in the next one in a week or so, I believe. Meanwhile, of course, remember to subscribe to the channel, give me a like, put a comment down below, and share this thing with your friends and in groups in Facebook or wherever to get some more viewers with my project, to be able to continue making these videos, of course. Thank you so much again, and we'll get back in the business very soon. Bye bye.